Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is my review for Pretty Little Liars Season 5, Episode 10, A Dark Alley. And wow, this episode was absolutely amazing. By far the best episode of the season. I absolutely loved it. And I was really looking forward to this episode, especially because the way last week's episode ended. Last week's episode ended in a huge way because, of course, we found out that there was actually someone, Cyrus was confessing to, him kidnapping Allie, but the thing was, Allie made that into, we thought that Allie was lying about that, of course. But after this episode, I'm kind of thinking otherwise after this episode. And there's definitely, it's going to get very intense, definitely. And at the end of this episode, definitely, it's going to get very big, and I'm honestly scared for Allie at this point. I am. I'm scared for Allie, because, as far as I can tell, Allie is not A. Contrary to everyone else who believes it, but I don't think Allie's A, especially after something we saw in this episode that I'm going to get to. But let's just get to it. So basically, we see, it basically begins where last week left off. We see Cyrus Petrillo is sitting in the interrogation room at the police station, and Detective Tanner is filling Allie's dad in on Cyrus's confession, and said that Cyrus's confession matches Allie's story. So, of course, because this matches Allie's story, she's trying to find out, what's going on here. So the liars are bickering with Allie and remind her that an innocent man is about to go to jail for kidnapping her. And, of course, basically Detective Tanner asked Allie to come in and, basically say, is this man the man that kidnapped you? And all Allie says is, I don't know. So basically the liars are pissed at Allie because, she made the story up and she couldn't have just said, yeah, no. They basically remind her that an innocent man was about to go to jail for kidnapping her, and she was never actually kidnapped. Now, Allie didn't want to hear it, though, because she has a plan, and A is, basically the plan is that A is obviously behind Cyrus, and she thinks that Cyrus will actually lead them to A. That's her plan, basically. Now, Hannah, Spencer, and Aria leave and tell Emily she has to stay with Allie and make sure she doesn't tell the police that Cyrus is definitely her kidnapper, because they don't think it's a good plan. I think it's a good plan. I think it's actually a genius plan in what she's saying. So Spencer says she's going to go to her house and to hide their insurance policy that she stole from Noel Khan. And basically, she found that thing that, Noel gave her that, that thing that proves that, Allie and, Allie and, now I can't think of her name, but the girl that Aria killed, I can't think of her name right now. Allie and Shauna were having a conversation, of course, Noel gave that to her, and, she doesn't want anyone else to find it because she doesn't want Allie to get in trouble, obviously. Plus, she's also trying to protect Aria because, what's going on with Aria, and, yeah, so I thought that was definitely interesting. So Ella is at home on the phone, canceling all of her wedding plans and arguing at the banquet hall, and honestly, you gotta feel bad for, Ella because, she just went through a very hard time, obviously. She just found out that Zach was not who she thought he was. And Aria's trying to get her to eat. She even gives her favorite food, but she's not eating. So, she's not eating, obviously, and she's crying to Aria that she should have seen this coming because she was so much older than Zach. And Aria reassures her that it wasn't her fault and volunteers to make the rest of her mom's phone calls for her. Because Ella really just isn't in the mood for anything. And I really loved how sweet Aria really was to her mother in this scene. I mean, that was just really sweet what she decided to do. So, basically, Hannah then decides to head to Caleb's house and fills him in on Cyrus's confession. And Caleb tries to make sense of it while Hannah rushes around the apartment cleaning out his refrigerator and ranting about how horrible his diet is. I thought that was kind of a funny scene. And she basically announces that she is done living a life for Allie. She's done with this because a bunch of girls are just upset about them not getting into choir, for a choir audition. So, Hannah wants to have a normal life, so she wants to audition for this choir. She really wants to, go out there and see if maybe she could audition for it. That's her plan. So basically, I thought that was a good plan, obviously. I like that Hannah's trying to actually, have sort of a normal life, because she really hasn't gotten to have one, and I like that now she's trying to have one now. So Spencer's on the phone with Emily, and she begins panicking, and she realizes that the recording that Allie gave her of the story she's supposed to memorize about her kidnapping is gone, and stolen out of her hiding spot, and she doesn't know where it is. So her phone rings and someone is playing the recording over the line. She hangs up and receives a text and it says, checkmate A. So the question is, of course, who is this? So basically, Hannah convinced Caleb to go for a run with her, and Spencer tracks them down. Spencer tries to tell Hannah that she's been watching the camera footage from her backyard. Hannah, though, doesn't want to hear it. She's not in the mood for this. She just doesn't want to be involved with this right now because, she just wants to live a normal life. So she runs off, and Spencer shows Aria the footage, and it's, because obviously Spencer's not getting through to Hannah, so she decides to go to Aria. She shows Aria the footage, and it's very weird footage, definitely. Basically, it shows a guy in a baseball cap in her backyard, and her sister Melissa gives him something and tells him to just do it. And Spencer is convinced that the guy in the baseball hat is Cyrus, and she tells Aria that she thinks they should come clean and tell Detective Tanner everything, even what happened to Shauna in New York, and explain it was self-defense. But the thing is, Aria really doesn't want to do this because that's one of the things she's upset about. Because Aria's upset about this, obviously, because, we go all the way back to the first episode of this season, where Aria killed Shauna. Aria obviously doesn't want to get in trouble because Shauna was not A. As far as we know, Shauna was not A. She had nothing to do with it. And, if Detective Tanner finds out Aria did something like that, Aria could be put behind bars, obviously. So, that's obviously not going to be good. Especially with something we saw in the promo, which I definitely want to talk about. So Aria pays Ezra a visit, fills him on Cyrus' confession and the footage from Aria's backyard, and Ezra grabs his coat and says that he's going to talk to Allie before she does something stupid, like send Cyrus to jail for a crime he didn't commit. So Aria basically won't let him leave and makes him promise he won't get involved in all of this again. And, she really does not want him to go to Allie's house, and I can understand why Aria doesn't want that, because think about it. Ezra just got his life together. He doesn't have to worry about, he got his stitches out. She just doesn't want him involved with this whole A thing because he has a good life and she just doesn't want him involved. And I understand why Aria did that, definitely, but the thing is that sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, honestly. That's what I say, definitely. So then we see a very crucial scene because this is definitely very big. So basically, Emily and Allie, they're at Allie's house, and Emily's lecturing her and reminds her that A is behind Cyrus' confession. And if she IDs him, she will fall into A's trap. So Allie reveals that Cyrus actually isn't a stranger to her. Basically, Emily's very shocked. Allie pulls up her dress, and she says that this is, he gave me this scar, and Cyrus gave her a scar on her thigh, and says, he gave me this. He's not a stranger, but I don't know how A found him. And that's what she says, that she was living with Cyrus in an abandoned basement, and Allie thought that he liked her, but it turns out he just wanted her stuff and her money, and she cries that Cyrus looked at her like she was worse than nothing. And Emily apologized to her for what happened, but tells her that A wants her to identify him and she needs to let him go. So basically, that story, I felt really bad for Allie in that story, definitely, because, she was played by Cyrus, and so she actually does know Cyrus. He's not a complete stranger to her, he actually does know her, and honestly, I really did feel bad for her in that scene, I really did. So then it's time for Hannah's choir solo, because of course, she's there. But of course, who is the worst person that could be there? Mona. Mona will be auditioning with her, and the teacher calls her name, but when Mona stands to walk into the audition, she ends up passing out, falls to the ground. Hannah rushes to her side. Mona wakes up and is confused and doesn't know where she is, cries to Hannah to get her purse, and Hannah looks through Mona's purse before she hands over and finds a picture of Cyrus's mugshot. Now, of course, I don't trust Mona right now. I don't. There's not one thing here that tells me that I can trust Mona. And the thing is, Mona could have just faked the passing out thing. I think she faked it because 1 second, she was on her feet, the next second she just passes out. That doesn't make any sense. Mona didn't look pale. Mona didn't look like she was sick. Mona looked completely healthy. So, why would she have just passed out like that? I don't know. There was nothing that told us, really, and I like that they didn't tell us because they want us to get more suspicious. I really like that. Again, in this episode, I really felt like Mona was A, especially what she was saying in this episode. So then we see Ezra. He actually does not listen to Aria. He decides to head to the brew, runs into Allie, and he sits down and tells her she's not in this alone. And a lot of people have gone along with her story. And before he can say anything else, Allie's dad arrives and tells Ezra that he doesn't need to speak to his daughter. He tells Allie they have to leave and go to the police station so that she can ID Cyrus, because 48 hours is almost up, and if she doesn't ID him, the police is going to set him free. So obviously she needs to ID him, right here, right now. She needs to do this now, and it needs to be done now. So she definitely needs to do this now, and that was definitely really big. So Hannah follows Mona and hops into her car with her in front of the police station, and she accuses Mona of setting up Cyrus's confession, but Mona insists she had nothing to do with it and is trying to figure out who did set it up. So they're sitting in the car together, and Allie and her dad get in a cop car with Detective Tanner, and Mona hacks into Detective Tanner's phone, and they overhear her saying that they are headed to the jail so Allie can identify Cyrus. Now, Hannah's freaking out, tells Mona to follow them, but Mona says they aren't there to follow Allie. They're there to follow Cyrus back to A. That's what they're trying to do. So this made me think maybe Mona isn't A, but at the same time, maybe Mona could be working with Cyrus. I don't know. Maybe she's framing Cyrus. I don't know. It seems to me like Mona's A. Just think about how creepy she is. It makes perfect sense. So Aria sees Ezra talking to Allie at the brew, and she is pretty much furious. And I get why she's upset, definitely. She has every right to be upset because she told him not to do that. She specifically told him not to do that. And Aria points out that once Detective Tanner finds out that Ezra and Allie know each other, it's game over for them. So Ezra asks her why she is so upset, and she doesn't tell him why. You know, she doesn't really tell him why she's upset, but Aria climbs in her car and drives off without answering. So, you know, she doesn't really tell him why she's upset. So Spencer then sneaks back into her house, and Melissa's waiting for her, and she knows Spencer was searching her room in the barn. Now, Spencer is very suspicious of Melissa right now again. I was very suspicious of her. Spencer is very suspicious of her. I can't talk today. Sorry, guys. Spencer is very suspicious of her, and, yeah, so Melissa insists that she was only helping Mona because she wanted Spencer to see that Allie was still up to no good. So Melissa says that they both know that Allie is lying and wasn't kidnapped, and she doesn't want Spencer to get hurt when the truth comes out. And Melissa says it's not safe for either of them to stay in Rosewood and ask Spencer to leave with her. Now, of course, Spencer's not going to. We know she's not going to leave with her because she doesn't trust Melissa right now. I'm thinking everything that Melissa's saying is absolute bullshit because it makes sense as to, you know, that video proves that everything she's saying is pretty much bullshit because of something that happened at the end of this episode, which I definitely want to talk about. So Detective Tanner takes Allie and her dad to the basement where Cyrus says he held her after he kidnapped her. And then we see probably a very hard scene to watch. You know, Tanner reminds Allie that if she doesn't ID him or the basement, they will have to set Cyrus free. And Allie, you know, she says to her, you know, can you remember anything about this room? And of course, we see a flashback of her and Cyrus. Basically, Allie introduced Cyrus to all of her friends, and, you know, she thought that they really were together. She thought he really liked her. And basically, he stole all of her stuff, and she tried to stop, and he slashed her leg with a pocket knife. And Allie's so now we know that everything that Allie said was in fact true. That is the true story. That is what actually happened. So Allie IDs the basement and tells Tanner she could never forget this place, obviously, because, you know, very horrible events happened there. And I honestly felt really bad for Allie because of that, because, you know, she really liked this guy, thought they would be together, and unfortunately, that didn't happen. So that's really sad, definitely. I really felt bad for Allie in that scene. I mean, definitely, that was probably one of the most powerful scenes of the episode. I mean, definitely that scene was just really big, definitely. So Hannah and Mona, they're still sitting in the car waiting for Cyrus to be released from jail, basically on a stakeout, pretty much. And Mona confesses that she passed, and basically now we find out why Mona passed out at choir. Mona confesses she passed out at choir because she started having panic attacks when Allie came back to school. And basically that's why she passed out. And a call comes in on Tanner's phone, and they learn that Allie's ID'd the basement, and Cyrus can't be released. So they're going to the courthouse to officially charge him. And Hannah's shocked that Allie did exactly what they told her not to do. You know, they said, don't ID this guy. But the thing is that, you know, this is part of Allie's plan. Allie has her own agenda. Allie lived it. That's the thing. They can't really tell her what to do in this situation because Allie lived it. Even though, you know, Allie really needs to protect her friends, Allie lived it. That's really what I'm going to say here is that I understand they want to protect her. I understand that they want to do what's best for them. And, you know, what's not going to make them get in trouble with Detective Tanner, not Detective Tanner up their ass. I understand that. But the thing is, Allie lived this. Allie knows what actually happened. And to her, Cyrus is a criminal. Especially when you think about what Allie went through. Yes, Cyrus is a criminal. He slashed her leg, took her bag, only wanted her jewelry and bags and shit like that. So, pretty much to her, he is a criminal. So, yeah, I definitely thought that was interesting. So yeah, I agree with Allie there, definitely, that he is a criminal. Even though the story she told was not true, he is basically a criminal. So then we see Aria talking to her mom about her relationship with Ezra, and she receives a text message from Hannah. It says, SOS, Allie ID'd Cyrus, and they need to meet. And I like the scene with Aria and Ella in this scene. Aria and Ella basically, they had a cute scene here, definitely. She told Ella about her relationship with Ezra, that they are still talking. And I was happy that Aria has a nice relationship with her mom now. And it seems like Ella and Byron are on good terms as well. I do like that. And she tells Aria that, Byron was the thing that saved her, from all this, surprisingly. I thought that was definitely really big last week when that happened. So Allie's arriving from the police station, and Emily's waiting on her porch, and she confronts Allie about what she did. She reminds her that IDing Cyrus will get them all in trouble because they helped cover her story, and Allie argues that she has a plan. But Emily, of course, doesn't want to hear it, because Emily doesn't want to listen to her right now, because she did not listen to them. So Emily storms off, and Allie promises she will make it right, and Emily sneers back, I am so done with you. But the thing is, if Emily were to just listen to her story, she'd understand why Allie thinks this guy is a criminal. Because again, Allie lived it. Allie knows what happened. And no one can say what Allie said is not true. But honestly, Emily, I understand why Emily wants to do that, definitely. Because Emily is pretty much suspicious of everyone right now. And Emily just doesn't want to listen to her because she did not listen to what they said. Now they're all going to get into trouble because they helped her, lie, basically. But the thing is that part of what Allie said is true. She was not kidnapped by this guy, but she was, in fact, attacked by him. So, the part about her being attacked is true, and as long as Allie comes clean to them about what actually happened, then, they should be fine. So, basically, she's really pissed at Allie, obviously. So Hannah fills Caleb on what happened with Cyrus, and she says that the police released Cyrus, but he must have went out the back and they missed him. And she assures him that Spencer has a plan too, and she kisses Caleb goodbye, and it seems like everything's okay with Hannah and Caleb. I like that. I like that Hannah and Caleb, everything's okay as far as Hannah and Caleb go. There's no more drama between them. Hannah's actually happy. In fact, she's smiling, and, Spencer's like to her, why are you smiling? And Hannah's like, can a person smile? I thought that was really funny, actually, because rarely on this show do we see anyone happy. Rarely do we really see anyone happy. So Emily finally arrives, and Emily's obviously pissed off right now. She does not really, she's really upset, and basically, she has their insurance policy proving that Allie lied about the kidnapping, and she agrees with Spencer and thinks they should go to the police and cut ties with Allie. It's finally time to do this, but of course, the thing is, if they do this, if they do decide to cut ties with Allie, this is not going to be a good thing in the long run, what's going to end up happening here. Because her story, does not really, because her story, they're not going to understand what's going on, Detective Tanner's going to get confused, and definitely, it's definitely going to get very interesting, definitely, I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen here, and I think it's definitely just going to get very, very interesting as to what happens there. But then we have to talk about the two most crucial scenes in this episode. Basically, we see Allie, she meets Cyrus in the woods with a black wig on dressed as Vivian Darkbloom, and she gives him an envelope, and he argues that he gave a warrant for his arrest, which wasn't part of the plan, and he reminds her that he could go back to the police and tell them how they really met and all of the fun they had together. And Allie tells him that he needs to take the envelope, and that is his shot at a fresh start. And, basically, basically what ended up happening is that, he needs to take that envelope, and basically she's gonna help them, she realizes that she needs to release him, and she's gonna get him free, basically, and I was happy about that, definitely. I was happy that she decided to do that. Now, of course, Cyrus doesn't want to listen to her, he's kind of upset at her, and he's like, you know what, you've done this to yourself, Allie, and then he leaves, definitely, and then he leaves her off, so that was definitely a very big scene. And then the biggest thing in this episode, though, is at the very end of this episode, because we see Melissa on this videotape, and she says, Spencer, I need to tell you the truth. And then it just cuts to black, and we see someone in black gloves and a black hoodie is doing their laundry, folds a candy striper striper outfit, and places it on the table. And that was the episode. And overall, I thought this episode was absolutely amazing. I loved it. So many great things happened in this episode. First of all, what is going to happen now? Because, of course, Emily wants to take, Emily wants them to tell Detective Tanner what's really going on. But it seems like next week this is going to really backfire on them, and A is going to frame one of them. So we're going to have to see what happens here, definitely. And honestly, I definitely have a lot of sympathy for Allie because of what she went through. After this episode, definitely you can see that there's no way that Allie is A. There's no way that Allie is A because she's telling the absolute truth about what happened. Again, Allie lived it, and they can't say that she's lying because she lived it. She knows what's going on, and it just makes her a lot more vulnerable of a character, I think, definitely, in my opinion. As far as Hannah and Mona goes, it seems like Hannah and Mona might have, repaired their friendship a little bit. I actually cared about Mona in this episode. Mona, for me, I actually really cared about her, and Mona seems like she's not A now. It seems like she's actually learned her lesson, and that was definitely very surprising, so I don't know what's going to happen there. And as far as Allie and Cyrus goes, I don't know what's going to happen there, if Cyrus is going to go along with Allie's plan, but we'll have to see what happens. And also, what is Melissa hiding from Spencer? I think it's what Spencer said, that Melissa and Cyrus are working together. I'm thinking that's what's going on here, is that Melissa and Cyrus, they are working together, and Melissa and Cyrus are both A. That's what I think. That's basically the gist of it, and that's what I'm thinking, that Melissa and Cyrus are both A. If you remember, there was evidence at the end of Season 4 that showed that A is a guy. And I think there definitely could be 2 A's, which are now Melissa and Cyrus. The whole Sydney, Jenna, Mona thing, forget that, because there's no way that's true, because, we didn't see any, we saw Mona in this episode. She did not seem that suspicious at all. However, they could throw a curveball at us, but she's been A before, so I doubt that she's A. But I honestly don't know. The show, it's really hard to tell what's actually, what the truth is. But definitely, I'm really looking forward to the next episode. Let me know what you guys saw of this episode. That's in my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. See you guys in my next video, which will be my review for tonight's episode of Finding Carter. So I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.